Okay, so this video is going to have a bit of a different direction. Why? Because it is a rant. It is a very large rant video about League of Legoland, most commonly known as League of Legends. Now, it doesn't really have a specific goal. It's just me venting about League and the stupidity that they like to pull. There are so many things that I genuinely don't understand if there was any thought process behind it whatsoever. They're just oh. From forever and a half ago, from currently now, they've just been going downhill in my mind of all of their updates. All of their updates. Except for, like, new champs. That's been the only thing. And even that is pretty iffy. Because, Silas. Yeah. I think it's completely fine how he can just regen over 1,000 HP with his W at low HP. Oh, great job right there. I think it's completely and utterly balanced that his E gives him a shield and allows him to knock up / stun enemies. It's great, and it pulls him right to you. It's wonderful. I actually don't even find any problems with his ult, to be completely honest. And I understand why his base abilities are as strong as they are, because they want him to be good even without an ult. Like most champions, you can probably imagine their kits are built with the entirety of their kit in mind. They are not built like one ability at a time or something along that line. They are built with each ability trying to complement the others in some sort of way, shape, and or form. Since he doesn't have an ult, his 3 abilities need to make do as they are. But that does not mean that they can be overpowered, giving him 2 dashes, one that stuns and knocks up, and the other that gives him a shield. Why? Pick one. Pick one, gosh darn it. And the whole healing thing with his W. I'm fine with health back. I'm not fine with more health back the lower HP he is. Which I've literally seen, 1,000 and higher HP gained back from using his W. That is not okay. That is not okay. And I don't understand why they'd think that is. The Galio changes that they keep making the same mistake that they do with so many champions. Oh, let's overpower someone. Oh, let's underpower someone. Oh, let's then change them back. Oh, wait, now they're overpowered again. Oh. Like, they don't seem to be able to make small changes. They either do a home run or they don't hit the ball at all. It's like you either throw the Hail Mary pass or you don't throw the ball at all, or you just put it on the ground. It's really just so stupid in my head. And there are just so many different champions. Now, I understand with a lot of champions, I have the champions that annoy me the most are the difficulty 3 champions and the difficulty 1 champions. Now you're probably thinking, just 2/3 of the entire game. But the reason this is because most of the time the difficulty 1 champions have a bit of an overloaded kit. Now, I understand that they're a lot more harder to play, so I actually agree with them having more of an overloaded kit than anyone else. But I don't agree with the insane amount of overload that they have, as you can see with Camille. Let's give her 2 dashes, a stun, a shield, a health back, true damage, knock up, invulnerability. The list doesn't fucking end. And, I didn't even mention everything. There's more that I could have kept going with Camille. It's a bit much, if I had to say. Now, I've tried to play Camille, and I have failed miserably at it. Now, I haven't, mained her, so it's not like I could do good on her if I really tried and continue to keep working on her, but I don't want to. And it's so stupid how certain champions can just get away with things like that when others can't. Another champion that I think has a bit of an overloaded kit, but I will agree with the general populace of that he's really not that overpowered. It's just you need to know how to play against him. But at the same time, there's only so much you can do to play against him, and that would be Yasuo. Such as, like, I agree, don't fight him in minion waves. There are 3 different lanes in the game that make up the majority of the map that have minion waves, and even the jungles still have minions for his E to jump off of. Now, I also agree that Yasuo's can be really stupid and try to fight you in a minion wave and you can win. His Q really fucking hurts. His tornado really, really hurts. And I don't know about anyone else, but I see the tornado as 2 different things. It should be a primarily, there's a primary and a secondary. A primary would be the knock-up function for his ult. The secondary would be a form of poke. Now, I don't know what form of poke they were going with for the secondary, but it seems like both are primaries because it does so much damage. It is so much damage. It is insane. It procs Triumph. I keep calling it that. Conqueror is what it's actually called. I don't know why I keep calling it Triumph. It does a ridiculous amount of damage. It's just ridiculous. I think that they should nerf the heck out of the tornado damage and just have it be a form of poke. Like, I'm fine with form of pokes being a bit aggressive, kind of like Vigor's Q or Ezreal Q, because Ezreal Q can hurt a lot. Now, I still think Ezreal's Q is a little bit much damage-wise, but I find it a bit more acceptable because, at least that takes mana. That slowly will whittle him down, that if you are capable of dodging that, it's not like that for Yasuo. He just needs to land 2 regular Qs, and then his next one has a tornado. And like that, yeah, you can dodge, but the AoE effect for it is huge. Like, there are so many times where I thought, oh, I can dodge this. Nope, it still hits me. And I'm like, but I wasn't even near it. Now, yeah, I agree. There are quite a few different skill shots in the game that can kind of just bend space and time and still land on you, kind of like Thresh Hook and Blitzcrank Hook, where I find those kind of, well, I don't really find Thresh Hook stupid, but, every now and then, you completely dodge them, and the game just says, no, you didn't. Which is a bit of a problem. And then there are other skill shots that are just broken for how wide they are, which I would say, Yasuo's Tornado and not Yasuo, and Irelia's E. Irelia is another champion that I think needs nerfed. Now, yet again, these are like difficulty 3 champions. It's hard to play. I agree with them having a bit more of a bonus effect to them. But, and honestly, I agree with how wide Yasuo's Q is, but only because with the primary thing of it should be used as a way to proc his ult, and that is it. I guess I still agree with it doing damage. You're getting hit by a tornado, but I don't agree with it doing as much damage as it does. Like, you can get poked out so easy with his tornado. And to be completely honest, by the time you drop from his first tornado, he could either already have another tornado prepped or have one, like 1 Q away. Meaning he's going to throw another very quickly, especially if he's a good Yasuo. And I think that's a bit of an issue. Like, I wouldn't think that was an issue yet again if it didn't do as insane amount of damage as it does. But I think it does too much damage. I also think that his passive shouldn't have the whole shield aspect to it, and it should just be, oh, we increase his crit. Like, why is that not enough of a passive? I don't get why we're going to just, like, double his crit isn't a good enough passive as it is. Like, think of Tryndamere passive. Like, it's literally just almost as good. Almost as good as Tryndamere's passive. It's kind of 50-50. But to like a different extent. Like Tryndamere's passive, you need to build up rage, and it gives the percentage of crit. This just makes you get crits. Like Yasuo's is just like it increases the crit that you already have. So it is a bit different. But just imagine if Tryndamere's passive, like the heal that his Q gives, just happens. He just gets it. I understand these are like big counterparts that they're not really directly connected, but but what I'm just trying to say is imagine if something that already increases his crit, already helps him out a good amount. He gets 100% crit chance faster than anyone else in the game, except for sort of Jin, but I'm not counting his 4th shot. His base attacks don't have 100% crit. He gets 100% crit chance faster than anyone else in the game, and yet he also has a shield. And I don't find that okay. And the shield is based off of distance, meaning his ult almost always gives him his shield back because he has to travel the distance to ult whoever he is ulting, which is just stupid. I also disagree with the fact that he can pair his E and his tornado Q, allowing him to instantly knock you up. Why? Because you can't dodge it. At least with the tornado, you can dodge it. I understand you can't dodge his ult when other people knock you up, but those are other people. I think that Yasuo should be completely self-sustaining, which he is. But I disagree with the fact that he can just go on to you and instantly knock you up, instantly then have the chance of ulting you. And like he should have to throw an ability out in some sort of way. Now I understand the other champions have ways of just instantly using other abilities that the way that their kit works, but other champions yet again don't fit like the criteria, and there are other champions that I also think should be nerfed in these same ways that I feel like they should have to do something in order to use that ability or to have to do that. And I just disagree with him being able to pair those abilities. And I actually don't find anything wrong with his wind wall. I am fine with that. I think it is annoying, but I'm fine with the ability. I think that his tornado and his passive are really the only thing that needs changed. And a little bit his E, because I don't really know whether that be under his E or under his Q, if the whole dashing tornado thing, what would happen there. I don't know. Then like I said, like Aurelia, like she's just yet again another champion that's hard to play, but kind of ridiculously strong. Like she can, yet again, the point of a juggernaut, the point of a bruiser, the point of a juggernaut is to get into the team and disrupt. And I will agree that she does that perfectly. Same with Camille. They do that so perfectly. But yet again, they have a bit of a problem between disrupting and killing. When Camille jumps on you and one-shots you, she just kills you faster, like so quickly, and that you barely had a chance to do anything because, yet again, she turns invulnerable and can just point and click, lock you in place. When she can do that, I find it a bit stupid. And she's just capable of just murdering you at that point. Her entire team is just capable of murdering you. And I agree with the team being able to jump on you and murder, but I don't agree with the fact that she can just solo murder you. And even if your entire team is there, she can disrupt the team enough to where she can murder you alone. And I just don't agree with that. I think that Camille needs a bit of the nerf in that regard, to where she should just not gain the invulnerability on her ult. I am sort of okay with her Q, just other abilities that I don't find her balanced. And I really, like, she can just dash around. Her E has a stupidly wide range. Like, it stuns you if you are not in that range at all, and it's dumb. I don't agree with the damage reduction on her W. Her ult is kind of stupid, but at least acceptable, I would say. They're just like very small changes that I think that they need to make in these regards. Where like you shouldn't just be able to run into an enemy team and murder them all, or at least just like get away with murdering one or two. Like when a bruiser is capable of doing half of an assassin's job, I think there's a problem. I think that maybe a quarter or a tenth of the assassin's job should be fulfilled, and you should disrupt the team. But that's about it. Like tanks can also disrupt a team, but they can do it in a much different way. And I agree with that of like they do it in the way of, oh, look at me, hit me. And I think that the bruiser should do it in the same way, but in a more of a, oh, not hey, look at me, hey, keep track of me and hit me. More like, oh, I'm moving around in the middle of your team. I am CCing half the team, and so on and so forth. And it should just, you should really just be bringing attention to yourself while doing a reasonable amount of damage. Now, the only problem that I have with this is like when you like lower someone in the way that so that they can survive in a team, so that they can distract the entire enemy team but they can't murder anyone. The only problem that leaves there is it makes it a lot harder for them to like duel people in a lane. And I think that should just be the drawback. It should just be the drawback. Like Aurelia can 1v5 your team. Not fully 1v5. Maybe she'll only get one kill out of all five. Maybe she'll get two. But she's still capable of charging in to half the team and disrupting. Now, yes, usually this is accompanied by like one or two other people on the team, but they're just more of distractions than anything else. Like Aurelia and Camille are just capable of just conquering your team, and it's just a bit stupid. It's just a bit stupid, and I think that they should just have a bigger drawback, or just not be able to do that, and then they have a better team or they have a better duel, kind of like Fiora. Like Fiora, I find a little stupid with her passive, but Fiora really isn't that good in a team fight. The only thing that Fiora can do in a team fight is use her ult. Besides that, she is what I would actually call a pretty good sponge. Like, she does the whole bruiser juggernaut job really well. She is capable of jumping into your team and surviving and becoming a target and saying, oh, hey, look at me. And then, like, distracting half of your team. And she does that very well, but she doesn't murder. The only time she can murder, but it's really only paired with like just when she has her ult and just when she's given the capability to. And I kind of agree with the fact that with like Aurelia and Camille, like if you really do think about it, a lot of the times they are paired with teammates. They usually wouldn't be able to just straight up 1v5 your team. And I think, like, well, that's good, but I just feel like the degrees are kind of different there. Like, Fiora she just does a lot better in a solo lane and then a little bit less in a team fight where she just distracts very well, but she's really not capable of killing all that well, except for with her ult. And usually when she ults someone, it's more of a like, oh, my team hit this person, and then she ends up either dying or getting just like something problematic happens to her. But I still find Fiora a little bit stupid in the laning phase with her passive. But for the most part, it's okay. There's that. And then, like, I agree that there is a meta. You know, you always have your good champions. You always have your bad champions. These will swap in and out based off of what's good in the meta. I agree with this. But I disagree with how they handle this just so poorly, in my opinion. Like, there are champions like Urgot. Now, Urgot's actually played a reasonable amount in, like, pro play and higher elo. But he's not really played much at all in my current games. There are other champions like Ornn that are so strong, are so good in every game, and then they nerf him, and they nerf him, and they nerf him, and now they're unusable. And now it's like every 1 out of 100 people play the darn kid. And it's same with like Zoe. Now I agree with the most of the Zoe changes, but and it's just like they went from in every game to no games, and I've actually seen Zoe a little bit more frequently now than I have in a while. But I never see Orns. Orns is just something that just doesn't happen anymore. It's just a rare occurrence. A lot of like Maokai is very rare. Scion is every now and then. Like Gnar is just unusable right now, and I hate the current meta so much. And partially, it doesn't do well with my playstyle. I will give it that. That is part of the reason why I hate it, because of personal bias of I don't play well in these situations because it doesn't do well with my play style. But I think it just focuses too much on go in strong, engaged champions. And that's it. That is it. That is the entire meta, was just explained right there. Strong, engage. And that's really all the game is currently. And that's all it's been for a while. Like, the meta hasn't changed from strong engage for a while, and they don't seem to even want it to, like, swap out. And I've kind of understand that, yeah, like, strong engage is more exciting. It makes games go faster, which solves their problem of game times, which, you know, now they only last close to, like, 30 minutes. Before it was, like, 45 minutes was an average game. It makes the game more fun, but at the same time, it makes it so much harder to come back from losing. You can't hunker down like you used to anymore. They nerfed farming in the jungle. Now junglers are like mandatory to gank a lot. And I am a very like mostly passive player. I like to farm a good amount and then gank every now and then. In like any of my lanes, I don't like to like it kind of depends on who I am or who I'm up against. But for the most part, I just want to farm. And then I will try to focus you every now and then when I get a chance, and so on and so forth. But champions like Xin Zhao are so strong that point and click dash to you. Pantheon has always been like strong and then falls off really hard. Riven is ridiculously strong and needs to be fucking nerfed. She can run over anyone. She can have like two items, and she can run over a tank with like 3. She can just CC you and lock you in place and then just fully overpower and destroy you. And then there are just like so many tanks now. Like now, I would say before in League of Legends, not all team comps, but a lot of team positions could be completely acceptable, and now it's not. Such as before, if you had 3 tanks, and then like your mid laner and your ADC were your only source of damage, you could easily win that game. Like, yeah, that was in like the middle of the tank meta, but you could easily win that game. Now, if you have any more than 2 tanks, you've automatically lost. Like the other day, I had a game where they had a total of 3 hard tanks. They weren't damaging tanks. They weren't juggernauts or disruptors. They were hard, get in your face, only have the capability of seeing you and nothing else tanks. And we destroyed them. We ran them over because all we had to do is either kill their damage or have our damage murder their tanks faster than their damage can murder us. And it wasn't that difficult. Like, now, it's basically mandatory to have 2 sources of damage, 2 juggernauts, and 1 tank. Like, not necessarily 2 juggernauts. That can kind of be interexpendable. But there are so many games that I've played that has a full 5-man of, like, assassins. Like, a Lux support, a Vayne ADC, Zoe mid, Teemo top, or Quinn top, or Vayne top, and the Rengar jungle, and like you can, or Assassin Kayn, or just Kayn in general. You can just run a team of mostly assassins as long as you have like 1 bruiser or 1 tank that is capable of soaking up most of the damage, and you'll win. Just because the engage is just too good to pass up, and it's too much to handle. And it's just too much of a problem. And just like even the little changes that they do just are stupid. I kind of agree with the Akali changes. I don't fully agree with them. Like the healing off of her Q, I think that shouldn't be getting. Why are they getting rid of that? That's her only sustain. Why are they getting rid of that? um, and I agree with the whole W, her not being able to tower dive like she was before. That's fine. But then Galio would one-shot people. He could use his Q and he could chunk an ADC's health bar. And he'd still have all this damage reduction and everything. And then they decided to murder him. Galio went from picked every game to every other game to every 10, 20 games. They took away his E damage, his W resistances, his alt resistances. They just lowered everything. Just everything. And then they're slightly buffed him back, but it's not as much, and it's just a problem. Like, I have problems with League from 2 years ago when they did the Mage update. Remember when Annie had true damage? Remember how quickly they took away Annie's true damage? Her alt said, "Oh, the Tibbers did true damage." Why? And then they took that away. Malzahar's always just been stupid. His alt needs to not exist in this game. His alt it doesn't need to exist. Where's the counterplay options? Oh, one summoner spell? Oh, great. One item in the entire game? Cool. It's like only ADCs and a few juggernauts will actually have that item and be good with it. It's like not everyone in the game is capable of getting that one summoner spell. There are just certain things I think they do that is just so stupid. And even summoner spells, I think that they really need to just have a team look at their summoner spells and say, how can we advance upon this, or how can we change this in some sort of way? Like, I was actually looking forward to when they were taking away all the smites. Like, there was only going to be one smite in the entire game, and it was going to be a mixture of chilling smite that also was a green smite. It took away red smite. It was just like chilling smite, and you could also place a control ward. And I thought that was actually a really cool idea. Which, yeah, it has to deal with an item more than anything else. But still, it was a cool idea. And then, they still have had the same summoner spells for years. For years, they've had these exact same summoner spells. And they barely mess with them at all. And the only thing that I can see that they, really went out of their way and messed with was, what's it called? Was Unsealed Spellbook. And honestly, I like Unsealed Spellbook, and there were a few big changes that I thought they should bring to it, such as I think everyone in the entire game should have it. And why? Because do you know how game-breaking it would be if anyone in the entire game could swap their summoner spells out at a reasonable rate? That would be great. I think, especially for how mandatory it is to have certain summoner spells in certain situations. I could just see that being used in so many innovative ways. Just, if you think you're going to lose lane, you take TP. You start to win lane, so you grab Ignite. You use your flash, so then you swap it out for Ghost. Now, yeah, I think it should still work in the same way of Unsealed Spellbook. Like, you have to earn the amount of points in order to swap your spells, but still. These are just things that I wish anyone can do when they want. Like, you're up against a bad matchup that has a lot of CC, grab Cleanse. It's just something that's really stupid. And even, just the mandatory fact that you need Flash. And yeah, I understand that Hextech Flash exists, but I think that they should work so much more on summoner spells. Like, summoner spells is actually something that makes them different from, every other MOBA. And I really wish that they fully expanded upon it and made it something. But no, they've had the same summoner spells for years, and they barely fuck with him. Every now and then they change him slightly. But there's that. And then there's, I mentioned it forever ago, a lot of the issues, other issues that I have for champions are difficulty 1 champions. Difficulty 1 champions are broken. I almost every single one of them. Wukong, Annie, Garen, they are not balanced. And I understand that the big stick with them is, oh, you can't play him in you can't play him in like higher up pro play, top tier, because they don't have the same mechanics, they don't have the same capabilities. And I agree with you to an extent. Like, if you play a Garen and low elo versus high elo, you will get 2 different responses. You will get 2 different reactions. Now, they're still good. Like, there's Annibot. There's literally the dude that just plays Annie every single game, and he's in high elo. Like, what are you gonna do? What? Like, they're still good. They're still good enough to be played in high elo, which I think is the point. And I agree, like, that should be the point. They should still be good enough to play in high elo. But I don't think that they should be monsters in low elo. Like, Annie is such a stupid champion. The amount of times that Annie has just like flash ultied me and one-shot me is ridiculous. And I understand yet again, like a difficulty 1 champion. Once she hits all of her abilities, she becomes useless. The only problem is when she hits all of her abilities, usually 1 to 2 one person on your team is dead and 2 people are at low HP or half HP. Like, she runs people over if she's capable. Like, it's just such a rare occurrence. And, like, even Annie. I don't know why I'm saying even Annie. Even Yasuo. If there's been a lot of different people like Yasuo mains that know that Annie deals with them very well. Now, yeah, as a Yasuo, you're capable of jumping on her just as easily. But if you're trying to style on her, you're trying to really just go in for the kill, she can stop you in your tracks easier than a whole lot of other champions. Just be like, nope. And just murder so many different people. Garen is utterly broken. Now, I haven't released the video yet, and this video that this video of me ranting is going to be released afterward anyway. But nonetheless, Garen is stupid. There was a game, this is the game that I'm talking about, where I released the full game, where Garen became a literal unkillable monster. He, at several points in the game, had at least 4 people on my team trying to kill him at once. Now, I will say that the main reason he was unkillable because our ADC was utter garbage. She was the worst, and basically our bot lane was just a steaming pile of dung that sits at the bottom of a dump heap. They were some of the worst players I've seen in a while, to be completely honest. And they couldn't, that was the problem there. Like, she just didn't have the skill to deal with the Garen. But at the same time, the Garen could literally run into our team and we could not kill him. I did no damage to him, and I was Veigar. The fact that Garen has damage reduction, AoE damage with his E, can silence you with his Q plus gain bonus movement speed, has a Warmog's passive, his W gives him armor resistance and magic resistance for simply having farm. He automatically gets that shit. The fact that he also has true damage with his ult for having the villain. It's just like, where is the balance? Oh, there is none. He is just such a busted champion I will never understand with guard. Wukong. Wu flippin' Kong. A point and click dash that makes his ult easy to proc. His ult knocks up everyone and does a reasonable amount of damage. His Q can chunk you. And his passive is okay. It really isn't that big of a deal, but it does make, when he's in the middle of your team, kind of bad because he has resistances because of it. And then, like, his W of just, okay, nope, you don't see me anymore. I turn invisible. I turn invisible. It's just something else. He just turns invisible and leaves a clone. Like, at least for other people, you can at least do something. Like LeBlanc. LeBlanc turns invisible and 2 different clones pop out. One clone goes one way, one clone goes another way. Her invisibility doesn't last as long as Wukong's for his normal ability. Okay? Not only that, but usually you can predict which one is LeBlanc because of the way it moves. A Nico, like, you can usually predict which her clone is and which is her based off of the way it moves, what direction it's going in, and more. But you can't do that with Wukong because one clone doesn't move. So you don't know if Wukong simply stopped moving or if he made a clone. Not only that, but yeah, now he's invisible and he can be moving in any direction. He could be moving towards you to try to turn the fight around on you real quick. It's just so stupid. And Pantheon, why does Pantheon have why is he literally a point and click adventure? Why is he allowed to block a tower shot? Why can he block literally anything in the entire fucking game? Why does his Q do more damage the less HP you're at? His W procs electrocute better than anything else in the game. His E, why does he have a point and click stun? Why does point and click CC ever exist? I don't like point and click abilities in general, but I think point and click CC specifically is completely and utterly broken. Ryze's W, no. Malzahar ult, no. It's so stupid when you have a point and click CC. Because yet again, the only way to counteract point and click CC is to silence, or not to silence it, is to have that one fucking item or have cleanse. And, I just don't find that fair. And, like, Pantheon's ult, I'm fine with his ult. But, like, just Pantheon in general, like, why? And now I understand that, yet again, Pantheon has a big issue of he's only strong early game. Wukong is strong throughout the entire game, but his weakest early game. Annie is always strong, but, like, at her weakest, like, super late game when everyone has a max of 6 items. And Garen is just always strong, but probably at his weakest at early game when he doesn't have the resistances from his W, and he really doesn't have, like, he's not that strong. He's just not that strong early game. But, like, just these things with these champions should just, all they need is tweaks. And that's another thing that I was mentioned earlier with League, is they either go die hard, change the entire champion, or they don't do jack shit. Like, I agree the old Urgot needed reworked, and new Urgot is okay. I don't fully agree with everything that they did, but honestly, I think that it's pretty okay. I agree that old Yorick need reworked, but did you see that there's a bit of a change? There's a change. These are full-on reworks that are fully needed. But yet again, like, Yorick fell into obscurity right afterward. Why? Because they changed him and then immediately nerfed the shit out of him. It's like, I agree that he needed nerfed. A lot of the times when they change someone, they make them too strong. But at the same time, you don't want to nerf someone to the point where they aren't played anymore. And yet again, like, Yorick just doesn't have an engage. He doesn't have a way of just engaging onto you easily so he isn't good in this meta. It's just so utterly stupid. Gnar is one of the champions. Now I'm gonna get into a little bit of like super bias here for a moment. Two of my most played champions were Gnar and Rek'Sai. Two champions that I have completely and utterly murdered. Gnar's damage is only there with his W. He does not do damage otherwise. His boomerang still hurts, but it's nowhere near as much as it used to be, which I agree with, honestly. But Gnar's whole idea is that he is a high mobility juggernaut. But he works in a juggernaut differently than any other juggernaut in the game. Because his job really isn't the whole get into a team and distract. It's more of a you swap between I'm going to distract the enemy team or I'm going to murder the enemy team. He is a tank shredding murderer. And he just can't do anything in this current meta. He even has a good engage and all, but he just can't do anything. Why? Because when he's in Little Gnar form, he is the weakest champion in the fucking game. When he's in Little Gnar form, his boomerang doesn't do insane amount of damage. The slow is still good on it, though. I still find his Q pretty strong. But, yeah, his W still gives him the movement speed, which I'm okay with, and, does a good amount of damage. But it really only does a good amount of damage on tanks. So, when I'm up against, like, a Riven or a Garen or anything that is capable of running at me, I can do nothing. You have your E, which, yes, it is a hop, and it can be a double hop. I find the double hop a little bit stupid, but I find the single hop underpowered. That ability goes from, oh, this is a very, very good dash that's kind of too strong, to, oh, this is a very weak dash that needs more. Like, his base hop distance is not far. It is not as far as, like, any of the other dashes. He just hops a little bit. Little itty bitty bit. And then, like, he just does no damage as Little Gnar unless he is against a very big tank. And then even when he's in Mega Gnar form, he really isn't that tanky. Like, because Little Gnar, or because of Gnar, has to build different items than, like, any other tank. Most other tanks can build one damage item, or bruisers can build one damage item and then go full tank. Gnar has to build, like, 2 or 3 damage items and then go full tank. And usually, other juggernauts will build, like, 2 or 3 damage items, but usually they'll space them out a little bit differently. Gnar can't do that. Gnar needs to either build him right away, or he does no damage, or not like build him super late, or build him right away so he can do some semblance of damage, or build him super late and then he doesn't do damage at all. And it's just so much of a problem, and he's just so weak. Like, there was a time where he was so insanely strong, and I agree that he was too strong at the time, but now he's too weak. Like, Riot, why can you not just find the sweet spot in the middle? Why can't you just go with the direction and be like, okay, this is what we need? You always either overpower someone or underpower someone. There is never a time... Okay, not never, because I even said, like, with Fiora earlier, like, she's pretty balanced. Or in sort of, to an extent. Like, there are balanced champions. But they're most of the time, they're just broken. Or they're too weak. Skarner is a champion that I kind of like. I think his ult is just as, like, more broken than Malzahar's ult. I think it is really stupid. But at least with his ult, he actually needs to be next to you to do it. But yet again, it's another point-and-click CC that shouldn't exist. But, like, Skarner isn't good at all. Like, he isn't played in the slightest. He's fallen into obscurity. Like, it's just so many different things. And I am going to come to Rek'Sai, but I also want to adjust on this. If I was the owner of a game company, and my team of developers came to me and said, we are going to stop working on such and such people in the game or such and such champions because we've been spending so much time at them that we've been neglecting other things. I'll look at them and I will say, okay, you have two options. You can either leave my place of business and never return, meaning you're fired, or you can devote like a smaller team to this person. You don't need the entire company working on one champion. And I agree. The three champions that they said we are done working on because we just can't fix them, or because we've spent so much time working on them in general. Not we can't fix them. I don't know where that came from. Are Ryze, Azir, and Rek'Sai. It's not that difficult. Now, I agree that Riot is looking things in the grand scheme. They see things from every region, from every area, and they need to look at a whole lot of different numbers. So I agree that I can only see my area and my numbers. So for me, it would be easier to do these balancing options and to do these things. But at the same time, like, I don't find Azir or Ryze in major disarray. I will say that they're both kind of in obscurity to the point where, like, they're not picked that often. But they're still picked more than, like, Rek'Sai. It's just, like, Azir is still capable of doing his electrocute, poke the shit out of you early game, QW thing. He falls into obscurity mid-game, and then late game, he's still capable of just running over the team. Now, I do agree with my one other friend who used to play Azir, and he doesn't really play Azir anymore because he's just, like, he's not that good. Where he goes, like, Azir just can't do the same amount of damage output. He doesn't have the same things and everything, but at least, like, Azir, you're strong late game and you're strong early game. You just have a weak middle game. But Azir is still, in my opinion, one of the best champions in the game because he can do anything. Ryze, I think his W is kind of stupid, but Ryze's damage is like hit or miss. It really depends on a whole lot of different things. Like, Ryze can still one-shot people, or he just won't do anything, and he'll just kind of be like a champion in the game that really hurts randomly. That, like, when every now and then you'll just see him pop off and one-shot two different people on the enemy team at the same time. And then other times you'll just see him die immediately as if he was a ragdoll. And I agree that, like, they should still try to work on these champions and try to fix them. But you got to do something. You can't just give up on them. You cannot just say, oh, we spent too much time working on them. And I agree that they have spent too much time working on them. But I disagree with the fact that, oh, you spend too much time, you're just done working on them in general. Because that's fine. That's okay. Let me just ignore them because I spent too much time working on it. It's like, if let's say you have a painting that I'm not going to say you're really proud of. You started a painting. You drew the outline of it. You started working on it, and you have this great idea in your head, and you just really want to accomplish it. And then, other things pop up. You work on it. You have to erase large segments. It's not really coming to what you wanted it to be. Are you just going to stop? No. You're going to keep going until you get like a result that you're happy with. Now, I honestly kind of agree where Ryze and Azir are at right now because, as I said, they're both kind of like hit or miss champions. Like, you really need to know what you're doing when you play them. They are higher skill champions, and they're just kind of like, I don't think that they need large amounts of works. I just think they need little tweaks. But where I disagree is Rek'Sai. I was a hardcore Rek'Sai main in the past. I would play Rek'Sai every game, and I loved it. And I still want to play Rek'Sai again, but I can't because she's so horrible. Like, at least, in my opinion, Azir and Ryze are in places right now where they are still capable of winning. As whenever I pick Rek'Sai, I honestly feel like I am a detriment to my team. And I don't like that. I don't I don't want to feel like the champion that can't do anything. Way back when I played Rek'Sai, they involuntarily nerfed her once, and then they straight up nerfed her twice. I think that was fine. And then they decided to mini rework her. They involuntarily reworked her because this was when they were changing the masteries, and there was when they added Colossus into the game for the very first time. When they did this, they took away a mastery that would give you HP based off of like killing basically, it meant that like the better farm you have, the more HP you had up until it got to a max. So because of that, it nerfed Rek'Sai a little bit because now she wasn't as tanky as she was before because that's the mastery that you would take on her because she was really good at farming. But so, now that wasn't happening, okay, not that big of a deal. Then they lowered her, or they increased her ult cooldown. Not that big of a deal. Now, this is old Rek'Sai ult, meaning that she could automatically travel to any of the tunnels that she had in the game. Much better than current Rek'Sai ult. So, that exists. So, that wasn't that bad. Then they decreased her armor, and they just made it so that her base armor that she had in the game wasn't as high, and it was just a bit slower. Okay, understandable. Old Rek'Sai, I would say, was a perfect juggernaut. Now, the reason this is because she was made to be a tank, but ended up to be a bit more of a juggernaut. Like, you could solo Rek'Sai, or solo carry as Rek'Sai, but it was a bit more difficult. You'd have to really expand your lead. But for Rek'Sai, she could get into the middle of the enemy team, and she could distract half that team. She could distract 3 to 4 of the members of her team and say, hey, hit me, because she could CC half the team. She could do AoE damage to all of them, and it wouldn't be a lot of AoE damage. It would just be some AoE damage. So like, oh, I've lost a quarter of my HP in the time that we managed to kill her. It's not like current Juggernauts, which is, oh, I've lost 60 to 70% of my HP in the time span that we managed to wound her as she flashed out. Like, oh, there's a bit of a difference there. And maybe she'd be able to, like, not kill, but get really close to killing one person because her E did a bit of true damage, which it still does. But still, like, these are things that existed where she could get into the enemy team and she could hurt you. And she could hurt the entire enemy team, and she could distract the entire team. She had great map pressure because of her ult, and she was just a good champion. And then they said, no, we need to make her a bruiser. Now, at first, I was optimistic about this, because in my mind, I was thinking, oh, bruisers are overpowered. They get to walk into an enemy team and one-shot you. Kind of what I was talking about with Aurelia and them. We're like, they get to walk into an enemy team and actually do a good amount of damage. So I was a little optimistic. But I also didn't like it. I liked where my Rek'Sai was at. I didn't think that she really needed this rework. And then they did the rework, and she was overpowered. Her passive was okay. It wasn't all that really useful, to be completely honest. Her Q damage was a lot. Or, well, really, it was just her auto attacks. It was a lot. It was so much damage. Her W still knocked up multiple targets, and it wasn't that bad. Her burrowed Q damage would do attack damage now. Now, like, the only real difference between this Rek'Sai and old Rek'Sai build-wise was now you get a Black Cleaver. That way your abilities are up faster and you're capable of doing more damage. And then you get, like, a Sterix Gauge, and then you start going tank. That was the only real difference. Like, she could one-shot people, and she could still be a good tank. Her E was basically the same, but now at, like, max levels, you could have infinite tunnels. Ooh. And the true damage was even more. That was all great. And then they completely changed her ult, which I don't like, so that it would be an execution to where she could jump on you and execute you Well, it wasn't. It did execution damage. It didn't. It wasn't like a pike execute, where it would just kill you. To like if you had any sort of mark, which you could get from her autoing you or just being attacked by her in general. And then they nerfed her. Then they nerfed her again. Then they nerfed her again, and then again, and then they did a slight buff, and then they said, oh wait, no, now she's too strong, so they nerfed her a fucking again, and then they left her just the shit on the floor. They just left her there to rot. And then they said, we can't work on her anymore. We've spent too much time. Like, she's literally one of the worst champions in the game now. Unplayable. She is unplayable. And you just are going to leave her like that. Like, why? They changed her passive so many times. Well, really, it was more like 2 or 3 times. But, like, now it fills up from 3 auto attacks. So now you have to use her passive well with burrowing. And I like that change to a degree because they made it so that, like, they changed her W, which is her burrowing capabilities. They made it so that now she has to burrow more because her knockup only knocks up 1 target. That is stupid. That's a problem. Her knockup now only knocks up 1 target. So now she needs to burrow more. So now the kind of strategy is burrow, go in, knock someone up, auto-attack them 3 times, burrow, knock someone else up, auto-attack them 3 times. And you want to do this process over and over and over again because that's how to best play her. Because like now she heals like that. She heals, and that's what her passive always was. Her passive before was more of a, I need to sustain. Her passive now is, I need to sustain, but it's so much more difficult too. Her passive before was just, auto attack, you fill the bar, you heal when you're burrowed. It's the exact same thing it is now. But now auto attacking fills the bar sooner. But the bar doesn't heal as much as it did before because before she was a tank, now she's a bruiser, meaning it doesn't heal as much health. Now, the bar, you need to go in and out of the ground a lot more to, fill the bar and heal. Before, all you'd have to do is you'd be burrowed, you'd go in, and then you'd stay unburrowed until the fight is over, and then you would re-burrow and then go back over and knock someone else up. Or knock multiple people up. Maybe you'd burrow in a fight if you missed or you messed up or you want to knock up other people. Now, you need to keep unburrowing and burrowing in a fight. Now, she isn't as much of a distractant as she was before because she dies immediately. She has no resistances like she did before. Before, she could tank a good amount. Now she gets into a fight and she's dead. Like, she did her initial burst, but then she dies. And it's so bad. Her old burrowed Q was really just for vision and to damage slightly. Now her Q is more of a, I need to poke and I need to proc my ult. And that is it. It damages, but it seems like it does slightly more damage than it did before. Now you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's a good thing. Before, it scaled with ability power. Now it scales with attack damage. Now she actually builds attack damage, and it still doesn't feel like it's doing that much damage. Before, it scaled with ability power, and yeah, it didn't feel like it did any damage because it didn't do any damage. Now it feels like it doesn't do any damage, and it still really doesn't do that much damage, but it should. It should feel like this ability really matters, but it doesn't. Then her unburrowed Q is, I don't even know if, what changes they did to that, to be completely honest. Really, it's still the same thing of your auto attacks become AoE, but, it's just okay. Even before, it was really just something that you did to do AoE damage, and that was it. Now it seems like it's something that's supposed to do more damage, but it doesn't. Her burrow, as I said, her W is she goes unburrowed, she goes burrowed, she knocks you up, but now she only knocks up 1 target. Before, she could knock up an entire area. And I agree with it because of the fact that they're transitioning to her bruiser, but you have to swap that out for something, and they don't. Her, not only that, but when she's burrowed, she doesn't have vision. She is not capable of seeing. Well, she can see things that have like wards, but for the most part, she sees through echolocation, meaning every time an enemy champion moves, she actually sees a little pulse in the ground. Before, that was a good thing. Now, it is literally like a full 1.5 to 2 second delay. Before, it was like a half a second delay, meaning wherever you saw the little pulses on the ground, that is where someone is. Now, it's like you see those little pulses on the ground, if you need to aim in front of it. That is not okay. That is not okay. Her E. Her E, it's just the tunnel in the ground. You pop up. It's when she's burrowed, she just tunnels into the ground, and she's capable of reusing these tunnels again in the future. When they initially changed her into Bruiser, it wasn't that bad because they buffed it. They made it so that when it is max leveled, because of this, you'd max her E, then her Q, then her W. Now, like before, it's always her Q, her E, then her W. But now, it doesn't do this. It make it so that you could have infinite tunnels at max level. It also increased the true damage from her E. Now it doesn't do that anymore. Now she still has true damage, but it's nothing compared to what it was before. And like when she was unburrowed, she would just bite you. And like now she still has her set amount of tunnels. And then there's her ult. And her ult isn't good at all. It's kind of cool, but really isn't good. Her ult is that if she has marked you. Now, the way she marks you is, I said if you are hit by any of her abilities or she auto-attacks you, it leaves a little mark next to you. Now, if she hovers over you and clicks her ult, she then burrows into the ground. This will happen after like 0.5, like half a second to a full second, meaning there's still half a second that someone can auto-attack you. She will burrow into the ground. Now, she will become untargetable, and then she will dash out of the ground and then attack you, and then she will continue to keep flying, though. Like, imagine if someone bursted out of the ground like 10 feet in front of you, swung at you midair, scratched you midair, and then they landed 10 feet behind you. That is her ult. Now, all fine and dandy, but you are capable of dodging the ability. Why can you dodge that? You're capable of flashing out of it. Like, imagine if someone, burst out of the ground 10 feet in front of you, and you ducked, and they flew right over you, and then they still landed 10 feet behind you. Oh, why? Why? There are so many people that will just dodge the ability now. They, like, for a point and click, like, why can't other point and clicks be like this? Why can't Malzahar ult be like this, where, he starts shooting his laser where he is, and then it'll eventually get to you in a straight line. And if you just sidestep it, nope, not Malzahar ulted. But no, you can't do that with Rek'Sai ult. And then it'll do no damage. It's supposed to do execute damage. Its execute damage is abysmal. It is abysmal. When they first reworked her into the Juggernaut, it wasn't so bad. It would actually really hurt. Like, you could ult someone at like a third of their HP, 30% of their HP, and you had a high chance of killing them. It was pretty, not a guarantee, but it was most likely that you were going to kill them. Now, it's like, you need to wait for someone to be like 5% of their HP. Like, I'm honest to God, like, she does so little damage, and she still can't tank at all. And, like, that's just the problem, like, right there. If they either need to, like, they need to pick one. They need to either make her a tank or not. And it's just so stupid where she's at right now. It's so stupid how just engage comps are the only good thing right now. How I hate the fact that just high difficulty champions get a free pass, low difficulty champions get a free pass, and then there are just so many champions that are just in complete obscurity and just aren't good at all. Just the fact that you have like basically mandatory requirements for your team of at least one or two tanks, one or two juggernauts, and one or two damage sources. Like, and if you don't have it, you have a much higher chance of losing. Like, like before you could pick fucking anything and you had a chance of winning. Well, not like you'd still had to pick someone at least relatively in the meta, but still. And like now you just don't have it. Like now it's like meta picks or nothing. You have to follow the meta or else you lose. You have to pick someone with high engage or else you lose. You have to have this amount of like set amount of people on your team or else you lose. Only these champions are good and all the rest can suck a dick. It's really just not balanced. And like to finish it up, I'm going to go back to Rek'Sai real quick and say if we can revert LeBlanc, if we can want to increase the time span it takes for assassins to kill you and make a LeBlanc's like change LeBlanc and then nerf LeBlanc and then revert LeBlanc back to what she was before, why can't we revert Rek'Sai? We reverted Rengar. Well, we reverted his Q. We reverted LeBlanc. Those are two different things that happened during the Assassin update that they reverted because, the Assassin and Mage updates were so good like 1 or 2 years ago. They were so good. Oh, yeah, they were definitely wanted. Giving Malzahar a Lichbane passive, that was a great idea. Like, those updates were just so greatly received, just reverting two champions. Just reverting those things. But we can't revert Rek'Sai. Like, that's like full revert, like way back revert. Give her her old alt. Give her the the W capable of knocking up multiple people. Her old E, her old, like, her E is basically the same. Her old passive, her old Q. Make the burrowed Q build off of AP again. Like, is it so much to ask? But yeah, that has been my League of Legends rant. My throat is now dry. I am sorry for filling your ear with all this for so very long. But yeah, it's just the problems I have with League of Legends. And they're just so stupid with so much shit that they do. And it's just a problem to me. So I'm going to thank you all very much for watching this video. And I am going to bid you all adieu. Goodbye.